Welcome to the Guyana Space Center and the launch of Heinrich-Hertz Satellit and Syracuse 4B on the last ever Ariane 5 rocket.
Our passengers are here on the pad, inside the top of the rocket, ready to begin their ride into space.
The teams in launch control, about 1 kilometer from the pad, are performing the last crucial operations before launch.
Over the next hour, we'll be bringing you live coverage from here, the Jupiter Mission Control Center.
And we will take you on a VIP tour of the new Ariane 6 launch pad. I'm Raphael Chevrier.
I'm Katie Haswell, and welcome to Flight VA261.
And the start of our satellite's journey on the road to space.
Operations running smoothly here at launch pad number 3, where today we are turning a page in space history. The last of the Ariane 5 rockets is waiting to make her final journey into space before passing the baton to Ariane 6. And our passengers up there sitting comfortably inside the cargo bay, inside the fairing, waiting to start their ride. That's due in about 27 minutes' time. You can see the countdown there on the top right-hand side of your screen. I'm in the Mission Control Center. Behind me in what we call the fishbowl, the operational teams, all focusing very hard at this point before the launch. This is very much the nerve center of operations here at the spaceport. Right now, all systems are green. That's a good sign. It means that we are go for launch. So we can find out a little bit more now about our mission, and just the man to tell us all about it is Stéphane Israël, who is the CEO of Arianespace. Thank you very much indeed, Stéphane,
for
coming out of the fishbowl to talk to us. So first of all, we were going to be meeting here on the 16th of June, but that launch was postponed. What's been happening since then?
Yes, first we have had to replace 3 pyrotechnical transmission lines. It has been done properly. Then 2 days ago we have had a red with the weather, so we have decided to postpone the launch to tonight.
And we're good to go?
We are very good to go. You know, to go you need to have the launcher ready, the satellite ready, the launch ready, and all is ready. So if everything goes as planned, we will lift off at 7 p.m. and we will have a launch window of 1 hour and 35 minutes.
So that's a really nice, comfortable launch window, isn't it? And of course we've got our 2 satellites on board. Do tell us a little bit more about today's mission.
2 very important passengers for this last Ariane 5. First, a German passenger, Heinrich-Hertz Satellit, which has been manufactured by OHB System for the German space agency DLR. And the second passenger, Syracuse 4B, for the French MOD, which has been manufactured by Airbus Defence and Space with Thales Alenia Space.
And of course, today it's the last Ariane 5. The teams have been working on this fantastic rocket for many, many years now. I can't imagine how people are feeling.
People tonight and all the team are moved because it is, as you have said, the last Ariane 5, and focused because what we need now is to make the final preparations for the final Ariane 5 launch. So moved and focused.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stéphane, thank you so much for that. So you can head back now to take up your position in the fishbowl, and good luck for the operations. Thank you, Stéphane. So, after 27 years, the mighty Ariane 5 is hanging up her boots and retiring to hand over to her younger sister, Ariane 6. Very exciting times ahead. Many of us, though, have grown up with Ariane 5. I certainly have. My first ever launch broadcast was the first operational Ariane 5, when she delivered a fantastic telescope into space called XMM Newton, which is still delivering really important technology, information and data back to us now. And that launch was in 1999. Someone else who's grown up with her is our technical expert today, Raphael Chevrier. Raphael, thank you very much for being with us. It's really lovely to have you here. Raphael's going to be with us now for the rest of the show. Raphael, what does she mean to you?
Well, you know, I was 10 when the first Ariane 5 lifted off, so for me she really is an icon. She became part of our collective culture. as a child, it really felt that she was the way of reaching the stars, you know.
Yeah, and she has delivered some really incredible spacecraft over the years, spacecraft which I think we can safely say have changed lives.
Oh yeah, and I really want to pay tribute to all the remarkable brains and the incredible people who actually made those missions possible and who are still inspiring me on a very personal level. Thanks to them, we've been able to send any type of satellites into any kind of orbit, satellites to help us understand the planet, the climate change, satellites to help us better communicate with each other, to understand our universe, where we are, where we come from, to help the armed force, and also cargo ships to supply the astronauts on the International Space Station. So this is no exaggeration saying that Ariane 5 actually changed our lives.
Yes, indeed. And today she is carrying two very, very important passengers into space. How are they going to get there?
With Ariane 5 standing right now on the launch pad, so today we are launching towards the east, as it's usually the case for reaching the geostationary orbit. So 2 minutes and 21 seconds after liftoff, the two lateral boosters have provided 90% of the thrust, so they will be jettisoned. Shortly after that, we will separate the fairing as we have crossed the limits of the atmosphere. So at that time, the satellites can safely face the emptiness of space. Once we have reached an intermediate orbit, the main stage will be cut off and separated. This will be 8 minutes and 40 seconds after liftoff. Then the upper stage will take over and power for 16 minutes in order to reach the intermediate orbit where the satellites will be released. By the way, the little towers that we see here on the motion picture, they represent a chain of telemetry stations receiving data from the Ariane 5 all along the flight path. So H2SAT will be separated first after some orientation maneuvers before we safely separate the dual launch structure. It's called the SILDA, that's the black box that we see here, under which the lower passenger, Syracuse 4B, is hidden. Syracuse 4B will be separated 33 minutes after flight. And then exactly like a relay race, we will pass the baton to the customers who will acquire their satellites and perform all the orientation maneuvers in order to get them into their final geostationary orbit, 36,000 kilometers from here.
That's a long way up. And as you say, Heinrich-Hertz is in the upper berth, up there at the top, the first satellite to be released. OHB led the industrial teams who built it for the German space agency, DLR, and it's named after the brilliant German physicist Heinrich Hertz. You've heard of Hertzian waves, you've heard of radio waves. Well, he helped us to discover them, and it is a very exciting and experimental mission. Let's find out more about it now.
On board Ariane 5 is Germany's new Heinrich-Hertz Satellit communication satellite, H2SAT. The Heinrich-Hertz mission aims to explore and test new communications technologies in space at a technical and scientific level, to determine how broadband communications can result in high data rates for mobile end users.
Our Heinrich-Hertz satellite is a communication satellite. It has a total mass of about 3,450 kilograms and is roughly the size of a small van. This is now the first communication satellite in Germany for about 30 years, and our goal is to demonstrate the newly developed technologies for communication satellites in orbit. We want to provide proof that these technologies are qualified for orbit using our scientific technical payload and the military payload to provide communication links for the National Army.
This mission will offer universities, research institutes and industry a platform for conducting numerous scientific and technical experiments. H2SAT is developed by OHB System on behalf of the Space Agency of the German Aerospace Center DLR, and the propulsion system is supplied by Ariane Group. With the Heinrich-Hertz Mission, OHB System, the prime partner, along with 41 other partners from the German space industry and research industry, demonstrate the ability to realize complex and secure telecommunication systems. This mission will make an important contribution to Germany's information society.
And in the lower berth underneath Heinrich-Hertz's Syracuse 4B, it's a military satellite for the French armed forces, and it was built by Europe's aerospace giants, Thales Alenia Space and Airbus. It's very powerful, it's very resilient, and it can resist even the most extreme jamming, and that's exactly what the military need for their operations. Let's take a closer look at Syracuse 4B.
Today, Ariane 5 is launching Syracuse 4B, a French military telecommunications satellite that is part of the Syracuse 4 program. At the forefront of technology, the Syracuse 4 constellation is being developed by the Directorate General of Armaments in collaboration with the National Center for Space Studies and the Armed Forces, and built by Airbus and Thales Alenia Space.
La nouvelle génération fondée sur les satellites Syracuse 4A et Syracuse 4B offre une augmentation des débits de communication et une protection accrue de nos terminaux utilisateurs. Alors que l'on constate une recrudescence des menaces sur les communications, cette modernisation est particulièrement attendue et contribue à la supériorité de la maîtrise de l'information de nos armées.
La transition entre les deux générations de système Syracuse est un enjeu très important du programme. Parce que le système Syracuse 3 aujourd'hui est utilisé en permanence par les forces en opération et il n'est bien sûr pas acceptable de couper les communications pour le commandement.
Syracuse 4B, led by Airbus, is the second satellite of the system. It aligns with the Ministry of Defence's space strategy, meeting the needs of the armed forces to communicate over long distances and during operations.
Airbus est fier et honoré d'avoir été choisi comme maître d'œuvre du satellite Syracuse 4B sur le point d'être lancé à bord de la dernière Ariane 5. Les technologies d'Airbus France, incluant la plateforme et des éléments de la charge utile, contribuent à faire de ce satellite un élément central de la souveraineté de la France dans le domaine des télécommunications militaires, en ligne avec les décisions prises par le ministère des Armées. Airbus et Thales Alenia Space forment une équipe de France unissant le meilleur de ces industries au service des intérêts nationaux.
Thanks to its next-generation digital core, the Syracuse 4B satellite offers improved communication capabilities, flexibility and resistance to jamming. This will enable French armed forces to stay connected and communicate even when in combat zones. First and foremost, Syracuse 4B highlights French expertise.
Syracuse 4 est un très bel exemple de coopération industrielle nationale. Aux côtés d'Airbus Defence and Space, Thales Alenia Space, mandataire auprès de la DGA pour le système Syracuse 4, a reproduit pour Syracuse 4B la charge utile qui fonctionne sans faille à bord de Syracuse 4A lancé en 2021. Les développements portés par le programme Syracuse positionnent la France à la pointe des nations spatiales dans le domaine des télécommunications militaires.
This latest addition to the Syracuse 4 program will play a crucial role in national defense by enabling the French armed forces to coordinate their operations and share vital information.
And teams have been working here at the spaceport now for the last couple of months, preparing these two satellites for their journey today and, of course, the Ariane 5 launcher. We call this preparation process the launch campaign.
Yes, but let me remind you that the launcher and satellites team have been working together for years in order to prepare these missions. But you're right, the launch campaign has started early May of this year, and so the customers have performed some standard activities on their satellites. They checked that it's working properly, they fueled the satellites, and then the satellites got transferred to the final assembly building where they met the launcher Ariane 5 for the very first time, and they got integrated on top of the launcher in this building.
And then, of course, the next thing was the transfer of the whole thing to its pad. That took place 2 days ago, and we actually filmed it, didn't we? We did a live show because it's a very special event, the last ever transfer.
It's a very special operation that is very specific to Ariane 5, so it's a very slowly process. The whole launcher and the table, it weighs 2,000 tons. It's towed by a small truck, and it's traveling 3 kilometers or so in 40 minutes. So very careful process on the vertical position. And so right now, Ariane 5 is standing on the launch pad, ready for the launch.
And on launch pad number 3, we have a number of different launch pads here, though, because the Guyana Space Center is a big place. We have lots of different facilities. It covers about 700 square kilometers. I think it's about 3 times bigger than the capital city, Cayenne. And the whole thing is known as the range. The job of administering it and managing it falls to the French Space Agency, over to their president.
Good evening. Today will go down as a day to remember in France and Europe's space program. In a few minutes, Ariane 5 will be lifting off for the last time from CSG, the European Space Center. I would like to dwell on this special and heart-stirring moment to recall some of the fantastic feats of this venerable launcher, the flagship of Europe's space industry. Between 1996 and today's final flight, Ariane 5 has clocked up 170 launches. With its unique lift capacity and orbital injection precision, it has carried a host of payloads into space, serving telecommunications, Earth observation, and space exploration missions. Let me reflect on some of these emblematic missions. Let me start with Rosetta, which embarked a one-way trip to Comet Chury atop Ariane 5 on March 2004, going into orbit around its target. 10 years later, an odyssey followed all over the world. Galileo, the best worldwide known European positioning service. More recently, the Webb telescope, launched on December 21, that is sending back stunning pictures of our universe. Today, we are poised to launch Syracuse 4B towards a destination which is much closer to home, but nevertheless equally vital for our security. CNES' role in developing this satellite, both on technology development and project coordination, has been instrumental as the space architect of Syracuse 4 program, providing its expertise to the Defense Procurement Agency, DGA, and to the Armed Force. This evening, Ariane 5 is therefore bowing out with a mission crucial to sustaining our military capabilities. I wish you a great launch, another fine chapter to add to the history of Europe and France's space program. We can be proud of what we have done, and we can be proud of this illustrious lady. Go Ariane 5, go!
Coming up to 11 minutes to launch. The final countdown actually started 11 hours ago, and there's a whole succession of operations that happens during that time. Coming up now to an important moment, which is the final weather check. Of course, all eyes on the weather here in the European spaceport. Yesterday we did have a delayed launch. We can control most things, but of course the weather's down to Mother Nature, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. But what we typically check is the wind at high altitude, the wind around the launch pad, and the risk of lightning that could damage the electronics during the launch. Rain is not so much of a problem, and that's a good thing because it's been raining quite a lot in the past days. We are in the tropical weather here in French Guiana, and we are actually in between the rainy and the dry season.
Yes, it's not called the Amazon rainforest for nothing. But it's actually a very good place for launching rockets from, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's an ideal location for launching satellites into space. In French Guiana, there is no big tropical storm, no hurricane, no earthquake. And more importantly, we are located 5 degrees north of the equator, which gives us a maximum slingshot effect given by the rotation of the Earth. French Guiana has also an amazing wildlife, and sometimes we see some animals wandering around the preparation buildings, but let's say that in more than 40 years of activity, nature and technology have learned to live in harmony here in French Guiana.
Oh, that's very, very true. We see some beautiful animals here. I actually saw recently a sloth crawling very slowly across the main road. My heart was slightly in my mouth for it, but it was absolutely fine. So we have 2 control rooms. This is the Mission Control Center, primarily concerned with the entire mission, and of course the Range Operations Manager here in the Mission Control Center calls out all the major events to the base. But we have another control center, it's launch control, and that's much closer to the pad in what we call the bunker. What are they doing over there, Raphael?
So they are in charge of all the operations to do with the launcher and the pad. So they woke up quite early this morning in order to start the final countdown. This was at about 7 a.m. And so they are leading and monitoring the operations leading us to the launch. For example, you have the filling of the tanks with liquid oxygen and hydrogen. You have the cooling of the Vulcan engine and the sphere pressurization of the main and the upper stage. That's just to name a few, of course.
Right now, they're all really focusing very hard because we're getting closer to launch. 8 minutes and 11 seconds and counting. And of course, here in the Mission Control Center, all eyes at this stage before a launch on the status panels. Those were the green boards that we saw earlier. And they're giving us all kinds of information, very important information. Obviously, green is go and red is stop. But what are they actually telling us, Raphael?
So we are monitoring several main parameters. For example, the weather, which is green right now. The launch base, the rocket, and of course, the two satellites inside the fairing right now. All these systems, they send their status to this panel, and they all need to remain green in order for the launch to go ahead. And like Stéphane said a little bit earlier, we have a quite comfortable launch window tonight, more than 1 hour. So if, for any reason, the clock happened to stop, we have some time in order to understand what's happening, to solve the issue, and to start the clock again.
Coming up to the beginning of the synchronized sequence.
À tous de DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur. Top I0 moins 7 minutes.
And the synchronized sequence has begun. Raymond Boyce, the Range Operations Manager, or DDO in French, has announced it. And Ariane 5 standing tall for a sunset liftoff. What's happening in the synchronized sequence?
So there is a complex set of operations leading us to the launch and giving more and more autonomy to the rocket. So just to name a few, we have the topping up and the pressurization of the tanks, of the main stage, and of the upper stage. At the onboard computer, we'll receive the exact time for liftoff. It's located right here, and that's the brain of the rocket, if you want. At 1 minute to launch, the power supply will switch from the ground to the rocket. The launch, we will see it only when the two lateral boosters ignite. Believe me, this is going to be spectacular.
Well, it will be, because Ariane 5 is always very, very spectacular. Some of the most important missions started their life on board her. She's had a fantastic career. Let's have a little look at some of her highlights. The legend indeed, and what a beauty.
Gives me goosebumps.
It does, goosebumps. It's very moving, but every exit is an entrance, and we're looking forward to the new Ariane 6, so we have exciting times ahead. And Raphael and I have come up to our skybox now. We're going to commentate from here now for the rest of the programme. 2 minutes and 16 seconds to launch. And I guess it would be a good time now to run through some of the things people should be looking out for.
Yeah, so only 6 seconds before liftoff, we will see the cryogenic arms retract. That's very last minute because the propellant it provides to the upper stage is extremely cold and constantly evaporating in this warm tropical climate. The Vulcan engine will ignite first. We will need to check it's working properly before we switch on the boosters. This will happen 7 seconds later, so we won't see the launcher moving during these 7 seconds. This is just a little warm-up before the very last Ariane 5 rocket takes off to the sky. Can you imagine, Katie, that next time the satellites will see the outer world, it will be in the emptiness of space?
That's quite a thought, isn't it? 1 minute and 17 seconds now.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
Enjoy the show.
Top H0 moins 1 minute. À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité. Top, allumage moteur Vulcain. Allumage 2 EAP, décollage. Propulsion nominale. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Propulsion nominale.
Syracuse 4B and Heinrich-Hertz Satellite blazing a trail on board the last ever Ariane 5 across the equatorial skies, and we can hear the rumble of her engines as she flies over.
It's very impressive, and we are, 11 kilometers from the pad, and the delay of the vibration is a bit amazing. We cannot get tired of it, and we have a very good view of the launcher right now.
Nominal.
He's telling us that the trajectory is nominal. Everything is going according to plan. 1 minute and 56 seconds into the launch. Fantastic view of Ariane 5.
Well, we have a very good view. I'm sure we will see the booster separation with the camera.
Nominal.
So the propulsion is working perfectly, nominally, as we say in the space jargon. And here we will see the booster separation. Yeah, we see it.
Séparation de deux EAP.
Wow.
And we have confirmation from the range operations manager.
Look at this. That's absolutely amazing.
Those two boosters on the right and the left being jettisoned. The white dot in the middle, the Vulcan engine.
So they are providing 90% of the overall thrust. And so they have been jettisoned. They are 240 tons each. The launcher on the ground was 771 tons.
And we don't need them anymore. We're shedding weight.
So everybody is completely nominal. So next step is the separation of the fairing.
That's coming up in about 10 seconds. You can see on the top of the screen our trajectory on the left-hand side is the planned route for the vehicle. And separation there of the fairing is what it looks like.
Séparation de la coiffe.
We have confirmation there of separation of the fairing. So we don't need it anymore, Raphael.
Nominale.
Exactly. So we were 117 kilometers above the ground when we separated the fairing, so we crossed the limits of the atmosphere. We are now in space, where the remaining gas is so thin that the friction it generates on the satellite is very negligible. Just to mention also that we switch from rear camera to 3D images now, because that's how we can follow the steps of the mission. The fairing was also used to protect the satellites from the noise generated at launch. We obviously need to jettison it correctly to follow the logic of shedding as much weight as fast as possible, because the lighter the craft, the faster it goes, in order to release H2Sat and Syracuse 4B in less than half an hour from now.
And that's the name of the game, of course, to lose mass so that we can climb higher into space. And the captain has switched off the seatbelt signs. If you look at our altitude at the top of the screen, 168 kilometers and climbing. So we have crossed what some people think of as the border with space, the Kármán line, which was at 100 kilometers above our planet. And yes, we can see Heinrich-Hertz satellite for the first time. You said that they were going to see space the next time they saw the outside world. Well, now Heinrich-Hertz can see space.
That's the case for the upper passengers. The lower passenger, Syracuse 4B, needs to wait a little longer in order to meet space for the first time. What we see is the black structure. This is the dual launch structure called SILDA. So it's used to accommodate the two satellites under a single fairing.
It's a very clever piece of kit because it allows you to attach one satellite at the front, and then it protects the satellite in the lower berth. He's just told us that we have about 3 minutes roughly left on the main stage burn.
So thanks to the Vulcan engine, that's the engine of the main stage, we are gaining lots of speed right now. So in less than 2.5 minutes, we will go from 4 to 7 kilometers per second, which is very fast, obviously. And this is a huge structure. It's 30 meters high, filled with approximately 160 tons of cryogenic propellant stored in 2 different compartments, one for liquid oxygen, one for liquid hydrogen. You definitely don't want to touch it because it's extremely cold. It's 100 degrees below zero.
And it's incredible when you think that the 2 boosters on the side are burning at phenomenally hot temperatures. So you've got the very cold tank in the middle with the very hot boosters on the side when they are burning. And of course, that's just such a remarkable feat of human engineering, isn't it?
2 extremes side by side. So everything is going perfectly right now.
We're flying out across the equator. Our flight path takes us across the Atlantic, across Africa. We'll be heading out towards the Indian Ocean. And he's telling us that we have now picked up the signal at the ground station in Natal, which is on the northeastern coast of Brazil, and we're tracking the launcher using telemetry.
Yeah, so the launcher sends signals back to Earth all along the flight, which are recorded by a network of telemetry stations so that the teams can make sure that the mission is performing nominally. Again, that's a word that we will hear very often during this flight. It's like a relay race with one telemetry station passing the baton to the next one. By the way, the trajectory today is a little bit different than usual. We will release the telecommunication satellites on an orbit with an inclination of 3 degrees with respect to the equator, instead of 6 degrees as it's usually the case for this kind of missions. So it will be easier for the satellites to reach their final geostationary orbit. We were able to do so because we had some remaining performance on Ariane 5, and when we have some margin, we just give it to the customers. And so the first station to pick up the signal was Galileo here in Kourou. Now it's Natal, and then we will have other stations all along the flight path.
Coming up on the next sequence of events.
Séparation de l'étage principal cryotechnique. Allumage de l'étage supérieur cryo.
So he's just announced and confirmed a sequence of 3 very important and very delicate events there.
Yes, so the extension of the main stage engine, the successful separation of the main stage from the rest of the launcher, and just now the ignition of the upper stage. It's a super important step because, you know, there are 3 engines on the rocket, 4 engines, sorry. 3 are ignited on the ground, and this is the only one which is ignited in space at 200 and almost 40 kilometers of altitude. So it's a very delicate operation, and it's imperative that we succeed in order to continue the mission.
So we were being tracked still by the Galileo tracking station in the CSG. We've really begun the upper stage phase now of the flight, very much the next phase of the journey. The upper stage has taken the wheel. Its engine burns about 16 minutes, and it's a really clever piece of kit. It's got a number of jobs. It's got one particularly very important job, of course.
Well, it's to transport the satellites to their transfer orbit where they're going to be released. We need to do this, obviously, in a very precise trajectory, in a very precise way. Good news is everything is going smoothly right now.
Let's have a look now at Space Team Europe.
Donc, je suis chef de mission et je coordonne donc toutes les opérations entre les clients satellites, la base et les opérations de préparation du lanceur. Donc ceci dès l'arrivée des satellites en Guyane jusqu'à leur livraison dans l'espace.
Donc moi je suis technicien fluide au sein de CGX Space. Mon but c'est de participer aux activités fluides, de la mise en œuvre, la propreté en gaz, en liquide et en finalité de faire le remplissage du lanceur Ariane 5. Et pour imager un peu, on est un peu les pompistes de la fusée. Voilà.
Je suis chargé de campagne mécanique générale en charge de la table de lancement Ariane 5, qui est la table sur laquelle est posé le lanceur pour son transfert et le décollage. Dans un premier temps, nous mettons en configuration la table pour permettre l'assemblage du lanceur et les charges utiles. Après le transfert en zone de lancement, nous réalisons la mise en configuration de la table pour permettre les connexions nécessaires à la chronologie finale de lancement.
Donc l'ingénieur météo au Centre spatial guyanais, il va tout d'abord réaliser des prévisions pour toutes les activités pour lesquelles la météo a un impact. Par exemple, les transferts satellites ou lanceurs. Pour les lancements, l'ingénieur météo va surveiller les conditions pour établir les critères pour le décollage. Donc ça va porter sur du risque de foudre et les conditions de vent à la fois en altitude et près de la surface.
Je suis autorité technique de l'étage principal d'Ariane 5. J'ai suivi son intégration au Murau. Aujourd'hui, je suis son intégration en Guyane sur le lanceur. Et pendant la chronologie finale, je m'assurerai du bon remplissage des réservoirs jusqu'au décollage. Aujourd'hui, si je travaille dans le spatial, c'est pour relever le défi d'un professeur qui me disait que c'était impossible, c'était un rêve inatteignable. J'ai relevé le défi.
And good for her. Let's see if we can go over now to Toni Tolker-Nielsen. Toni is the Director of Space Transportation Systems at the European Space Agency. Toni, thank you for joining us from the Fishbowl. Space Team Europe, it was very inspiring to see those people talking. What does it mean to you?
I saw a T-shirt with the Space Team Europe for the first time during the James Webb Space Telescope launch in December 21, and I find it a great idea. Space is booming right now. There's an acceleration of the use of space, and above all, an acceleration of the commercialization of space. Unfortunately, this is going much faster outside Europe, in the US and China, and also India is catching up very fast. The space economy is foreseen to be booming in the coming decades, and in order not to lose out on this, like we did in the dot-com economy 20 years ago, we must get our act together and accelerate the use of space in Europe. All the various players, from the users to the space industries and the funding authorities, will stand much stronger with a common vision and common goals.
Toni, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate you talking to us from the inside there of the Fishbowl. Toni Tolker-Nielsen, thank you very much indeed. So, Ariane 6, very much the new kid on the block, the product of the European space expertise here in Europe. Raphael and I were lucky enough to visit her pad. The Ariane 6 launch zone consists of a range of facilities and connections.
Once the rocket is integrated with its pad, it becomes one whole system.
This ensemble of buildings is the launch pad itself, and from one side to the other, it's 200 meters wide. That's about the size of 2 football fields.
And this is the mobile gantry. It is as tall as the Statue of Liberty and slightly heavier than the Eiffel Tower.
Ariane 6 is assembled horizontally, then transferred to the pad, where it is raised vertically thanks to the gantry. The fairing with the satellites inside is hoisted and connected to the top.
The mobile gantry protects the launcher during preparations on the pad, and it allows the teams to work on the rocket until shortly before liftoff.
There are 22 levels, with platforms giving the teams access to all the parts of the Ariane 6 launcher. And I am on top of the rocket. And this is the fairing. This is where, inside, the satellites will be sitting comfortably, waiting for launch.
And I'm in the bottom, down here in the bowels of the building. And these big pipes run all the way 300 meters from the outside to the rocket, delivering cryogenic fuel.
It is complex engineering. They must be kept at extremely cold temperature in order to maintain the oxygen and the hydrogen as liquids.
Shortly before launch, the gantry rolls back along rails, revealing Ariane 6.
The mechanical, electrical and fluid lines, which join the rocket to its pad, disconnect when the launcher lifts off.
This is a giant exhaust pipe, and during the launch, all the fiery plumes will be coming out of there.
And for Ariane 6, we have added the very special deflector. It's used to divide the flames in two parts, and inside here is going to be 3,000 degrees during the launch.
So you better not be on this pad during liftoff. Another important player is the water tower. As the rocket lifts off, water deluges the pad to reduce vibrations on our precious passengers inside. We are 6 meters underneath the pad with the rocket sitting right on top of it. And the water comes from the water tower through these massive pipes and then up onto the cable.
And the water is drawn from a dedicated lake. And once it's used, it's carefully treated in order to protect the wide variety of animals and plants and released back into nature.
Once it's done its job, the launch pad is reset for the next mission.
Ready to continue the outstanding story of Ariane.
Very impressive to see how Ariane 6 is becoming reality. And you know, Katie, a couple days after our visit, the mobile gantry was actually retracted for a rehearsal, representative of a real launch sequence. The good news is it went very well, and the next step will be a hot firing test of the lower stage engine Vulcan.
All under very tight security, of course, by the French Armed Forces, who are based here at the Guiana Space Centre and are celebrating their 50th year.
Every time a rocket is launched from the Guiana Space Centre, over 300 military men are mobilised. Their mission? To protect the Space Centre, its surroundings and those present. The spaceport, spread out over 660 square kilometres, hosts important missions for European space activities and national defence, all of which are extremely sensitive and high-risk operations. Before each launch, around 100 legionnaires and artillery troops are deployed on roads, tracks, and also within savanna and forest zones on quad bikes, off-road and track vehicles, and even in kayaks. Their surveillance also extends to the maritime zone, where 2 vessels from the French Navy patrol this restricted area. A Confiance-class patrol vessel and a coastal patrol vessel from the Maritime Gendarmerie. As for its airspace, this is constantly monitored by 2 Fennec helicopters with snipers on board. A Puma helicopter is also ready to take off at any moment, carrying on board soldiers and gendarmes prepared to intervene in case of intrusion. On the ground, there are surface-to-air missiles operated by artillery troops, capable of destroying any threatening aircraft. To complement the security and protection system, the CNES, the National Centre for Space Studies, calls upon the Paris Fire Brigade and the Gendarmerie, who are permanently present on site. Protecting Europe's spaceport is the Armed Forces in French Guiana's main mission, but they also fight against illegal gold mining and illicit fishing. This year, the 3rd Foreign Infantry Regiment, one of the Armed Forces units in French Guiana, marks its 50th anniversary. 50 years of expertise and protection at the service of European space activities and international influence.
Travelling at 8 kilometres, just over 8 kilometres per second. Our distance, 6,000, nearly 7,000 kilometres from the pad, and an altitude of 270 kilometres high. We're really starting to climb now into space. And there are people all over Europe working in space transportation. They're represented by an organisation called the Community of Ariane Cities.
Less than an hour from Paris lies the historical birthplace of European rocket, Vernon. This charming little town on the outskirts of Normandy, with just over 24,000 inhabitants, is known not only for its quality of life or its old mill, but also for 60 years of innovation and space exploration. This year, the city of Vernon, with its sights set more than ever on space, has been chosen to preside over the Community of Ariane Cities, CVA. Established in 1998, the CVA aims to strengthen cooperation amongst its various space partners, inform citizens about space activities in Europe, and contribute to the training of future professionals in the space field.
À travers cette présidence, Vernon mettra évidemment l'espace et tous les acteurs de la filière du spatial et de l'aéronautique au cœur du débat, avec des objectifs très simples, comme la valorisation de la dimension spatiale de notre territoire, valoriser également le campus de l'espace, site qui est le berceau de notre histoire aéronautique vernonaise. Valoriser aussi le savoir-faire et la haute technologie des entreprises du territoire. En somme, valoriser l'attractivité de Vernon.
European space exploration has been part of this city's DNA for half a century. It is in the Ariane Group factory in Vernon that the new engines of Ariane 6 are currently being designed, as are all the engines in previous Ariane launches.
Ariane Group et la ville ont un lien indéfectible depuis des dizaines et des dizaines d'années. Le site de Vernon est d'une grande importance, une importance stratégique pour l'accès à l'espace. En 1946, 50 ingénieurs allemands spécialistes des missiles V2 arrivent à Vernon et contribuent à créer le LRBA, qui se spécialisera par la suite dans la conception, la fabrication et les essais des moteurs fusées. En 1971, l'activité moteur-fusée du LRBA est intégrée à la Société européenne de propulsion pour devenir par la suite Ariane Group. Véronique, Vesta, Vexin, Valois, Viking, Vulcain et Vinci sont autant de noms dont le V rappelle qu'ils sont nés à Vernon.
A summer university for Ariane cities, an event dedicated to Ariane 5's last flight, and even a space-themed fireworks display. Throughout the year, the city of Vernon is organizing a rich program of events inspired by the colors of the community of Ariane cities.
I love how he listed the name of all the engines beginning with the V. And during that film, we had confirmation there that we entered the sphere of the tracking station in Malindi on the east coast of Africa. So they've now taken over monitoring events from Libreville. 24 minutes and 15 seconds into the flight. Raphael, we're getting closer now to switching off our engine.
Yes, in order to prepare the separations of our first satellite, H2Sat, so it's important to do it on time in a very precise way, as it will really drive the satellite's lifetime in space. Ariane 5 is famous for its injection precision. We've seen it for the launch of James Webb Space Telescope a year and a half ago, and again for JUICE spacecraft in April. Ariane 5 was so precise that it considerably increased the life expectancy of these space probes in space.
Extinction de l'étage supérieur cryotechnique.
So the DDO confirmed that it got successfully cut off that upper stage.
Début de la manœuvre d'orientation au profit de Heinrich-Hertz Satellit.
And he's announced the beginning of the orientation maneuvers for Heinrich-Hertz Satellite. So really getting now into the next phase of the journey, preparing to separate our two satellites from the mothership. Right now, without the engine, we are coasting in the coast phase, which we often call the ballistic phase, which means, I believe, that we are traveling without power. And we're on trajectory.
Yeah, we are really starting to climb into space. In the next 5 minutes, we will almost triple the altitude, going from, well, 600-700 kilometers to more than 1,326 kilometers, where the Heinrich-Hertz satellite will be released.
And we have a slightly different trajectory today, don't we?
Yes, like I said, we are targeting a slightly lower inclination as usual, and that's a good thing because the satellites will use less fuel in order to rejoin the geostationary orbit, which is around the equatorial plane.
And the people monitoring all of these operations are actually in a telemetry center on a hillside just behind the Mission Control Center. We call it here the CVI, which is the sort of French acronym for real-time visual control, and they're getting all the information there.
Yeah. So the team here are receiving the data from the tracking stations. So they check the status of the launcher in real time, especially regarding the propulsion, the guidance, and the trajectory. Most of the data is not analyzed in real time. It's analyzed offline by dedicated teams in the days and weeks following the launch. So that's why we also constantly improve our knowledge of the launcher. Let me remind you that the success rate of Ariane 5 is 98%.
Yes, a very good success rate. Going through a very specific set of manoeuvres here, orientation manoeuvres. Once we release our satellites, they've got a long journey ahead. They've got to get to their final orbital slot. That's 36,000 kilometers above the Earth. We call that geostationary orbit. And in order for them to be able to do that, we have to set them off on their journey properly and to their exact position and orientation in space.
Absolutely. Actually, each satellite has its own set of requirements for being released into space in very specific conditions. For example, for an Heinrich-Hertz satellite, we need to release the spacecraft such that it is slightly rotating on itself at a speed of 2 degrees per second. You know, like a barbecue spit. We can see on the animation that the upper stage is...
balistique se poursuit nominalement.
He's telling us that the ballistic phase is going normally.
Exactly. So the upper stage is slightly spinning the satellite. So it's also performing orientation maneuvers in order to be directed at 90 degrees with respect to the sun. This is also a specific requirement, usually done in order to distribute the heat evenly over all parts of the satellite.
Ariane 5 has a fantastic track record.
Yeah, of course. Well, in 27 years of operation, 239 satellites into orbit, it constantly improved its performance. Can I start a little quiz with you?
Oh dear.
What was the fastest Ariane 5?
I don't know, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me.
That was for the Mercury mission Bepi-Colombo. On October 2018, the rocket reached almost 11 kilometers per second.
Fantastic. 11 kilometers per second. That's a phenomenal speed. Coming up now on the first main event, H2 Sat separation. That's what it looks like up there.
Séparation Heinrich-Hertz Satellit confirmée.
And we have separation of Heinrich-Hertz Satellite. Our first satellite has starting its new life in space. It needs to climb to 36,000 kilometers. And obviously a whole load of things have to happen in the meantime. But we still have our second passenger inside the cylinder. Can't see it right now, can we?
Yeah, very good news, of course, but the mission is definitely not over. So the teams are extremely focused because we have another passenger to deliver into space. Next step is the separation of the black structure, the dual long structure Silda, which will reveal the lower passenger, Syracuse 4B. So the satellite will meet space for the first time in a couple of minutes. It needs to be released also in a very specific way. So in this case, the upper stage will stop spinning because Syracuse 4B needs to be separated in a stabilized way. And also the upper stage will rotate in order to separate the satellite in the direction of the sun, this time, with the thrusters directly pointed at our star.
Coming up now on the next part, the important phase of removing the cylinder so that we can reveal Syracuse 4B inside. That clever piece of kit, the attachment kit, which allows us to attach the satellite in the upper position and protect the satellite in the lower position.
It should happen in any seconds.
moving very carefully and very, very slowly away.
Séparation, Silda confirmée.
And we have confirmation there that the Silda has now been removed.
Another very good news.
And moving away in, again, a very carefully planned set of maneuvers.
Début de la manœuvre d'orientation au profit de Syracuse 4B.
And he's announced the beginning of the orientation maneuvers for Syracuse 4B.
So you actually see the upper stage rotating in order to separate the satellite in a very specific direction with respect to the Sun. I can also mention that the two satellites are separated with a safety distance in order to make sure that they will not collide with each other, because you know they are following the same trajectory towards the geostationary orbit, and in this case it's dozens of kilometers that separate the two satellites, thanks to the orientation maneuvers that are being performed right now by the upper stage.
The teams at the Malindi tracking station keeping their watchful eye now on all these operations and sending back the data here to the CVI teams, who then provide that to the Range Operations Manager, Raymond Boyce, to announce. This is the scheduled time for separation.
Séparation Syracuse 4B confirmée.
And we have separation of Syracuse 4B. That's great news. Ariane 5 has delivered her second passenger, bang on target, over the Indian Ocean. Congratulations to all the Syracuse 4B teams and to the H2SAT teams. Best wishes to all the teams now on the ground in the two control rooms, taking over your new satellites and going through the early phases of the operations. Happy faces all around here.
Congratulations to all the teams, of course. We'll see a funny passenger here in the control room.
With the requisite sunglasses.
What emotions.
It's a very emotional time because Ariane 5 has, of course, performed flawlessly and beautifully. And the team's now very, very happy. Of course, the work is done for some, but for others, it's just beginning.
Yes, because their satellites need to rejoin their final operational orbit. But you know, people often ask me why a launch can generate such strong emotions. But honestly, when you see on the launch pad this huge product of human genius sitting there on the ground and thinking that in 30 minutes, it's reaching the outer space. Well, I mean, when we see this, we understand, and I hope, we feel it, right? It's very hard to describe with words, but and you can see also all the teams that they've known each other for years because they've been working together for years. It's very special.
It's a family. It's a family, the space family. The level of expertise is phenomenal. And here, very happy faces. We're looking at some extremely happy faces for the last ever Ariane 5 launch. Waiting now for Stéphane Israël to come back to the floor.
So we see the teams from the satellites, from Arianespace. It's a very special, like I said, customer service provider relationship. It's absolutely unique, and like you said, yeah, this is the space community, is a family, and when you enter it, you stay there for a long time.
De la télémesure par le satellite Heinrich-Hertz.
And he's just announced that we have had the signal from Heinrich-Hertz Satellite. So Heinrich-Hertz, I believe I'm right in saying, has now called home.
So the team, there is like another team acquiring the satellite and performing all the maneuvers in order to get it into the right orbit, the right position. So yes, the journey is definitely just the beginning, because we released the satellites at 1,300 kilometers of altitude. They need to go 36,000 kilometers away from here. So obviously, the journey is only beginning for the satellite.
And of course, they've got a lot of operations to go through. It's often known as LEOPS, the Launch and Early Operations phase, when the teams on the ground take their satellites through all the various different things that have to happen. Obviously, they've got to put out their solar wings, deploy their panels to get some electricity from the sun, and a whole set of operations. And it sometimes takes days for those things to happen.
So I can also mention that
we have Stéphane. I'm really happy to see you there, Stéphane. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We've come to you inside the fishbowl this time. Stéphane, congratulations.
Yes, it's really a great day, a great evening for Germany and France, for France and Germany, and we really want to thank Heinrich-Hertz and the German Space Agency, Syracuse 4B, and the French MOD for their trust. Tonight, Ariane 5 has made the job.
And she's really performed flawlessly, hasn't she? The workhorse, as usual. I wonder how you're all feeling now.
I think what is important is the collective feeling we have. We are all here in the Jupiter control center, and it is really today, tonight, the success of a team, a European team, the success of Arianespace, Ariane Group, the success of CNES, the success of ESA, the success of all our industrial partners in Europe. And you know that MT Aerospace in Germany is one of its industrial partners. It is a success of Team Europe tonight with this last and final Ariane.
Indeed, and they're performing the combined operations, aren't they, here at the pad for Ariane 6? And things are going well.
Yes, indeed. So Ariane 5 is now over, and Ariane 5 has perfectly finished its work, and it's really now a legendary launcher. But Ariane 6 is coming, and the team are now working hard here in the Guyana Space Center on what we call the combined test of Ariane 6. We have made the withdrawal of the mobile gantry the 22nd of June. The team of Ariane Group and CNES are now working with ESA for the next step of the combined test, so we will have a very busy summer.
And tell us about the next launch then, Stéphane.
So the next launch will be with our Vega launcher. It will be VV23, and we are also preparing this next launch. So during this summer, we have here in the Guyana Space Center key operations for Ariane 6, and also key operation for Vega.
Stéphane, best of luck for all of those operations. Thank you once again, and congratulations to everybody and all of the teams. Stéphane, thank you. So let's go now over to Gregory Gavois from Arianespace, who is on the other side of the glass. Gregory, you're in front of the fishbowl with some guests and customers. I'm sure everyone must be feeling very, very happy. Hoping Gregory can hear me, but I'm not sure that he can. I've got a feeling that maybe Gregory can't actually hear me.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Katie. We are indeed very happy here. I'm with the representative of the manufacturers and operators of the satellites launched by Ariane 5 today. So starting with the two gentlemen, Heinrich-Hertz Satellit. Next to me are Mr. Gräf and Mr. Schneider. So Peter Gräf, you are director at the German Space Center, the DLR. This is your first time in Kourou. How do you feel now? And can you explain what are the next steps ahead of us for the satellite before being operated by your teams?
Well, thank you. So it's what an excitement. I'm thrilled actually to see what happens here, how precise the satellites were injected. So this is really amazing. Congratulations for this perfect, spectacular launch. And
thank you.
Thank you very much to all contributing teams that helped to insert our satellite into this transfer orbit. So the satellite is doing a pioneering work for us because it offers a platform for research done by institutes in Germany and the German industry. So we are looking forward to an operating system within the next few days in the geostationary orbit. And I know that our teams on ground are working hard and are very busy to make that happen in the next days. So Well, thanks again to Ariane 5, this perfect launch. This last mission of Ariane 5 is over. For us, it just started.
Just starting, indeed. Thank you very much, Peter. Talking about European and German industry, we have here Alexander Schneider. You are the program lead with OHB, the company which designed and built Heinrich-Hertz Satellit. Also your first time in Kourou and the end of a tremendous industrial journey, I suppose. Could you tell us more about what your teams did over the past months to make this program a reality? Alexander.
Well, first of all, thanks to Arianespace for this beautiful launch. It was really nominal, and it was really a pleasure. And in the last weeks, you asked, we were here in Kourou after we finished our environmental test campaign, and we were working together with Arianespace and Syracuse team, had daily meetings. It was always very professional and very hospitality here. I enjoyed my time here, and thanks to the teams, it was really a great pleasure. And also, I'm very honored to be part of the last Ariane 5 launch. Of course, it's a French-German mission. We see the two satellites, and that's something very special to me. I'd like to thank the German ministries and DLR for the trust in OHB to build this satellite. And of course, I would like to give a big thanks to the OHB colleagues at home, which did over the past years with all their passion and professionalism this hard work. And of course now we have kind of half-time, and we will go now for 15 years operations of the spacecraft, and I can confirm we have acquisition of signal.
Great, this is a fantastic news. Big kudos to the team. Tonnerre d'applaudissements pour Heinrich-Hertz et les équipes. Vielen Dank, meine Herren. There were two satellites on board today on tonight's launch. We've talked just here about Heinrich-Hertz Satellit, and I'm now inviting on stage three representatives from the team Syracuse 4B, the second satellite that have reached space thanks to Ariane 5 today, and we have another confirmations ongoing live. So let me start with you, General Sayegh. General, you are Director of Space Programs within the French Armament General Directorate, the DGA. Could you please tell us a bit about what Syracuse 4B will bring to the French Armed Forces, namely to those who are engaged in operations on the field?
With pleasure, but just before I would like to thank you and thanks all the teams. It's my first stay here in Kourou for the launch of military satellites, and each time someone used the name of Space Family, and I really feel it. And once again, thanks to Ariane Group, to Arianespace, to CNES, it was a wonderful launch, even if it is the last one. And for the French Armed Forces, it was very important to succeed this launch. So Syracuse 4B, it's the new model for the military communication satellite. He will meet up his little brother, Syracuse 4A, which was launched in October 21. And it's just a next generation communication satellite, which is very accurate, border coverage for our forces, and it is for the three forces, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. And as it is a military satellite, obviously it is protected against more or less everything which can occur, from nuclear event, cyber defense, or even jamming. So it's a wonderful piece of technology, French and European technology, and he's just beginning his launch. He's worked to the geostationary orbital, because it's using an electrical motor, so it will take 6 months to go there.
Thank you. We wish the best to Syracuse to reach the destination. Thank you very much, General. Next to you is François Gaullier, the Senior Vice President Telecommunications and Navigation Systems with Airbus, the prime manufacturer of Syracuse 4B. So, François, what makes this satellite a very important program and mission also to Airbus?
Yes, Gregory. In fact, it's a very, very important mission for us, and I would like to start by thanking the DGA for giving us their trust, because for the first time, Airbus France is going to deliver satellites to the armed forces. We are not doing that alone. We are doing that with what we call the Équipe de France, the French team, with many partners, starting by Thales Arianespace, but many, many others, French suppliers like Safran and many others. We are also very pleased to bring into this program by Airbus all the technology, our industrial know-how to make this satellite, what is Syracuse 4B, super resilient, robust, and super safe. Now the story is not over. It's just starting for another part of the mission. The team indeed has received the telemetry in the control center, and they will work for the next 6 months to bring the satellite into orbit. So another team that will dedicate their time to bring the mission up there. Now let me thank all the people who have worked on the program. Wherever they are in France, from Airbus and other suppliers or other partners, it has been a tremendous work to go up to this mission now, spending months, weeks, days and nights to bring the satellite now into mission. Thanking the people here in Kourou as well from Airbus, who have spent many weeks, a few more than expected, by the way, to be ready, green light for the launch tonight. So thanks for them. And now saying a big hello to the team in Toulouse as well, because we have gathered all the people in the Cité de l'Espace to celebrate this event with all our partners, our customers, everyone into this event. So enjoy the event, enjoy the night. It's a unique moment for our country, a unique moment for Airbus as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, François. Thank you. Talking, I think the team, Syracuse 4B, the Team de France, deserve some kudos. Talking about the team, let's leave the floor to Jean-Baptiste Tinturier, Director Military Telecommunications with Thales Arianespace. So Jean-Baptiste, Syracuse is not only about tonight's satellite, right? It's a wider program in which Thales Arianespace, along with Airbus and other industrial partners, play an important role. Could you tell us a bit more about this role?
Yes, indeed. Syracuse, in fact, is a telecommunication program for the French armed forces that has been designed by Thales to connect all the forces anytime, anywhere, under the worst conditions. We are very proud to have been part of the Syracuse program for 40 years. We have lived with the Syracuse 1 first program, and now we are at the fourth generation of Syracuse that we are manufacturing with our partners of Airbus. And I must say that the collaboration is very good with Airbus. Like François said, I think we form a very good French-based team. Tonight, I would like also, like you have both done, thank all the teams. I would like first to thank DGA and the Armed Forces who have launched this program in 2016. I would like also to thank the CNES that has supported the program for all those years. I would like also to thank the teams that have worked together, both Airbus and Thales team, because the program was long and difficult. And of course, I would like to thank Arianespace for this beautiful launch tonight. Our bird is very beautiful. It's now flying to its final destination. And I would like to say, I would like to wish a long lifetime to Syracuse 4B.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, messieurs. Thank you also to all the teams who deserve big kudos here in the room. Un tonnerre d'applaudissements encore une fois pour les équipes de Syracuse and also Heinrich-Hertz Satellite. You mentioned it. Our role with Arianespace is to open roads into space to allow you, our customers, to reach their destination. This is again the time for tonight, so thank you very much. I've been very pleased, and we all very pleased and proud to share the passion that prevailed on this final Ariane 5 launch, a legend that is now passing the baton to Ariane 6 in an iconic space continuum. So over to you, Katie, for the end of the show. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Gregory. And yes, indeed, the adventure certainly continues. The new star of the show, of course, is Ariane 6. We've seen her on the pad, you and I, Raphael, and trust us, she's a beauty. But today we say goodbye to Ariane 5. She's taken her final bow, and what a beautiful performance it was. I have to tell you that I feel very privileged to have witnessed it.
Yeah, me too. And it was an honor, Katie, to commentate this final launch with you, and congratulations to all the teams. We are turning a page in space history tonight with Ariane 5, especially for those who grew up with this iconic rocket. But I am very excited to open a new chapter with Ariane 6, thinking that there will be a new generation of rocket scientists, of rocket enthusiasts. No doubt we will call them the generation Ariane 6.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to see you for the next launch. But from me and from Raphael, until next time on Road to Space, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Unité. Stop.